We are Past the Scope EDU, and we are so excited this morning to be joining you. We are here during our celebration anniversary month, the month of April. This is 3 years in the making for us. And each of our panelists that you see on screen here are going to introduce themselves to you in a moment here. I'll start it off. I'm Valerie Lewis, an assistant principal here in Gwinnett County, Georgia. I'm a newly minted assistant principal, mind you. And so Ryan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Smith. I am a digital learning instructional coach in the Dallas-Fort Worth area here in Texas. Connected educator for years, a lover of video, and a father of 4. How about that? It gives me ample time to do video and apply education to it in those lessons of being a father.
And that just brings so much joy to the world. So thank you so much for sharing all of your family stuff. I am Margaret Atkinson, and I teach middle grades in Southeast Louisiana. And I love connecting with people. I love connecting with humans. I love just bringing and building coalitions, because I really think that that's kind of the power of community. So I'm so thankful for Past the Scope. I'm so thankful for Connected Educators. I'm thankful for Brian and for Val and for everybody who's joining us. So just let's kind of learn together. I'm so excited about today. It's great.
Thank you guys so much for just introducing yourselves. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this community and this group. We're Past the Scope EDU. It really is an organic space where we learn to grow with each other, and we believe in the power of application, because we know that teachers usually don't get to share their voice or have a seat at the table. Usually decisions are made about how things are going to go or what they're going to do. And this community truly allows you to be innovative, creative, put your community. Kind of brings me to this morning that our spaces allowed us to speak on live streaming. So Brian and Margaret. So when I looked up online about this definition of live streaming, well, obviously the simple definition would be streaming live, right? Is what you would say it is. It's pulling up your phone, your device, and just going live where everyone can kind of see what is happening in real time. Is that your same definition of live streaming? What you guys is, or what?
You know, in simplest terms, yes, that's exactly what it is. And the cool thing is you don't need to overcomplicate that. You know, it is simply you being you, just live to an authentic audience that either you create or you open yourself up to. When we begin to overcomplicate something like that, that's when anxiety and fear and doubt and you know, other issues pop up. But if you keep it simple, you know, my mom always used to say, keep it simple, stupid. You know, when you keep, you keep things in its purest and simplest form, you know, that's when you get the most organic value and the most powerful impact, you know, about it. And that's simply what live streaming is, at least from my own vantage point.
And I completely agree. The idea live streaming is authentic, and it's live, meaning you yourself are doing it. And so you should kind of see being able to stream just like living day to day. I mean, that's what live streaming is. It is your day-to-day life. And so if you can interact with other people, if you can talk to other people, then you can definitely live stream, because it's just you talking and it's just you living your life, you know? And so I think that that's, for me, what gives me the greatest joy is it's like, here I am, like, no big deal, here I am. So I think that being able to be comfortable with that then encourages other people to be comfortable with it as well, too.
That is awesome. And so what you both mentioned there is just how it's authentic, being able to bring people in and invite them. So that means that must be some level of vulnerability that you're willing to give. So that will bring me to our first question. What do you think the benefits are to being vulnerable? Because some people are going to look at vulnerability as a negative thing. Oh, I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to let people in. I don't want them to see this. But what are the benefits just in general to be able to be connected to humans or having that human connection?
I mean, just that. I mean, that is everything. If you are able to say, okay, here I am. What can you see in me that I can see in you? What's reflected in me that's reflected in you? Those connections are then built, and you're able to really see like each other. You're able to see each other's humanity. And then from that, you can build and grow together. So I think that vulnerability, I think that it takes somebody strong to be vulnerable. And I think that it takes courage, but then in doing so, you then kind of inspire other people too as well, which then builds.
Yeah, I think the idea of being vulnerable is a key component of integrity. When you're live, it's hard to hide, a facade that you're trying to create of yourself. So in that, I talk about digital citizenship a lot, and one of the things I say about digital citizenship is online you have to be the same person that you are off the stage. That's an integrity, issue. And when you're vulnerable, especially with video, because you can't hide. I mean, well, one, when I'm live at home, you can see my background right here. You can see my Lego station, which actually is a ping pong table overlay over my pool table, inside of my game room. And and I don't. This is just a part of who I am. So having that opportunity to invite people in to see who I truly am. It brings us back to that authenticity, and the human aspect that Margaret was speaking about.
And I don't want to jump in too much, but that idea too, that like as humans, I think we're hardwired to look for connections with each other. And I think as humans, we're hardwired to try to find what makes us the same. And so if you're able to say, oh my gosh, Legos, oh my gosh, I know that, oh my gosh, Val, you in the car, like all of that being who you are, showing that, not being afraid, then lets me say, okay, I can do that too. And so I think that we as humans look for those connections, and that's so important to be open to them.
I mean, we can't hear Valerie.
Okay.
I was just gonna add to that because you're real. We live in a world right now where people are thirsty for connections, thirsty for someone else that is going through the same things they're going through, that has the same creative mindset that they have, because there's a lot of aloofness, sometimes intentional, but sometimes people feel alone just because, in their immediate surroundings, they don't have someone that's supportive of them or that thinks like them, whatever the case may be. So when you have the opportunity to open yourself up to other people in a setting of using live streaming, we may be helping people out, with that particular reach that we necessarily didn't anticipate doing so, but was definitely needed for them. That's all I was going to say.
Absolutely. No, I mean, you both hit it right on the nail. There's just that natural need to connect. I mean, I know some on this front that I don't need anybody and I can do this all by myself. That's not true. That natural feeling of belonging, wanting to know that you're appreciated, that you're valued, not saying that you're looking and seeking attention and needing to be on a big stage, but naturally we all want to be affirmed in some capacity. We want to feel like someone is seeking us out, even if it's just to say, hey, Brian, hey, Margaret, I hadn't seen or heard from you in 2 weeks. And just that feeling of knowing, wow, they recognized that I was missing. I was down and out. Or, last week, Margaret, you weren't feeling too well. And just to know, wow, someone took time to say, Margaret, are you doing better? That is natural. And so the benefits of being connected or having a human connection it's just so good. It just affirms you as an individual. So definitely, it's a must. It's a necessity. And we live in a time where Brian kind of touched a little bit to this, and I'm going to go deeper in it, where we're talking about young people.
Mhm.
Young people even more have that thirst of connect to humans. And now they may not do it in the best manner face to face, but they're looking for that virtual human connection, whether that is from the amount of likes that they get on their Instagram, lip selfies, or, you know, unfortunately, we have to teach them, as you mentioned, that digital citizenship and living in a virtual world versus the reality of a world. They're seeking human connection. There's something that they're going after. We have to touch base on that, make sure that it's a healthy connection they're seeking and not one that's going to send them into overdrive, perilous place. So with that being said, I'm going to go into our second question, if that's okay. In what ways do you prefer to connect with others? So I talked about how teenagers are in this virtual world, but how do you prefer to be connected?
I'm not sure I have a preference. I'm being serious. You know, bringing in the teenage mindset, I've got two of them, and they are a different species. And I'm starting to understand that I'm a little old. My kids say all the time, "Dad, you're old," and I didn't. You know, at first I was offended, but then but then I realized that what they're saying is that, you know, because of my responsibilities as an adult, I have gotten away from the things that they desire in their particular worlds and how they interact with one another, be it from music, be it from video, whatever the case may be. And my model has always been meet them where they are, but you know, sometimes my responsibilities take me away from them. So when I say I don't have a preference, I've gotten back to the point where I will sit in on their conversations. I will listen to their chats. I will watch the videos because I have to figure out a way to meet them where they are. You know, take out the negativity. You know, there's always going to be some negativity in what they're looking at. But if I can actually help them facilitate that their way through it, you know, and work as an interpreter in some of those messages that they get, then that's my preference, you know, for connecting. As an adult Passoscope, you know, EDU, what we do with live streaming, you know, we have the opportunity to provide such a diverse lens on various topics, you know, to gain a true global perspective. You know, sometimes we're in our silos and we hear certain voices and only we have a tendency to adhere to only those voices, you know, that's attached to a name. But what we do here at Passoscope EDU is we spread that notoriety around, and it becomes not about the person, it becomes about the message. So that's one of my preferences for connecting. The other is the old-fashioned face-to-face. You know, when we get together at conferences, I mean, it is like, oh my goodness, you know, I'm seeing you in 3D in real life. You know, all the sharing that we've done. I know I'm hogging, you know, the question, but all that sharing that we've done, you know, online and virtually, but to be able to see you face to face, there's so much power, you know, in that. You know, if I can just give a plug, I'm putting together a social media conference, and during the social media conference, we shut down everything for an hour, no sessions, you know, no tech. It is a face-to-face, what we call a socially reconnected hour, you know, where we have old school business card boards. You put your business card up. We've got games, Unos, Human Size Connect 4, where people are just chatting and networking face to face during that whole hour. I think that as technology continues to expand, we lose the value, or sorry, we forget about the value, you know, of face to face, because we can take advantage of talking to each other, you know, virtually, and it seems like face to face, but it's not as authentic of being able to shake your hand or give you a hug, or to really tell you a story to make you cry. That to me is important. So whatever the need is, that's my preference. That makes sense?
Totally. And I mean, there's so much to say. So, okay. So first of all, Val and Brian and everybody else who asked when I was sick, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know if I said that, but thank you, because it was rough. But I think that just what that example, what Brian just said about face-to-face, about connecting on different levels, really shows the complexity of the question, right? It's not just how do you connect. It's not just how do you prefer to connect. It's how do you prefer to connect as a human, whether it's by the channels or by your strategy. So what Brian was talking about in terms of being, you know, the father and modeling and kind of guiding and then having those honest conversations is one way that you have to connect. Forget devices, forget how the how, it's the why. You're connecting to be able to affirm other people, and Val, you mentioned this earlier. You're connecting to be able to affirm other people. You're connecting because you want to look for what's in common. You're connecting because you want to honor the other person's humanity. You can honor the other person's humanity through modeling, through making sure they're okay, through complimenting, through pointing out ways that you guys can grow together. So that the why of how, what's your preference for a connection, the why is because you want to affirm and honor that other individual. But then Brian again hit it out of the park when talking about the actual connections too. Yes, of course you have these digital. Yes, of course it's so great to see. I haven't seen y'all in person since last SD, and it's just so joyous to be like, hey y'all, hey, I'm here. You know, so like that's exciting. But then also Brian hit it on the head in terms of like face to face. Like I cannot tell you how much my students enjoy playing board games, playing card games. Not every day, it's a reward, you know. And so after testing, after testing, and how we had those very long weeks, they didn't want to watch a movie. They craved that human connection. And so being able for them to connect by playing games, by talking, by socializing, there's nothing that's ever going to beat that. And so Brian, I wrote down your social media. Like, I want to thank you for the plug because I want to go. But I think that also speaks to the idea that a preference for connection should not include how do we, the why. It should be, why are we doing this? We're doing this because we want to build our humanity. That's ultimately my plug.
That is excellent. And you guys are absolutely spot on. There's not one way to do it. There's not a right or a wrong. There's not a better way to do it. There's one thing that I've always said is meet people where they are, wherever they exist. They're in your building face to face, they're in your neighborhoods, they're in your communities, they're at your church, they're at your local grocery stores, they're online on different platforms, whether that's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. There are so many ways nowadays to be able to connect with people. And so to give a little bit of ourselves, and as Margaret, you mentioned, just that humanity, it goes such a long way. And we know the times that we're living in, you know, things tend to feel a little divided. And, you know, we read about this time of division back in history books. Never thought that we kind of be living in it to some extent, even now in present day, but we are. And so it really is important for us to tell our stories, to be able to share the good things, to control our narrative, so to speak. And wherever people exist, that's where we must go. And so there's not one right way or one wrong way to do it. Just do it, and no matter where that is. So I'm going to ping pong over to Brian, who I think may be giving us the next question. If he has that, thumbs up.
Here's my vulnerability. Oh, we're doing it like that? Okay.
And look, okay, so what I'll do is say the next question does come from Brian.
It's all good.
I can read that question off, and Brian, you control it.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I'll go ahead and jump on it. And, you know, I guess, you know, the questioning, you know, I'll give the question in just a second, was more about, you know, bringing our worlds a little bit closer. So the question itself is, hey, how does live streaming help garner a sense of connecting as a community? That would be the question. I'll let you guys fire off on that first, and then I'll come back and explain more of the why.
I think you mentioned it with just the Pastiscope EDU community. Like that is, I cannot tell you how grateful I am to know that there's this place that I can go, that we want to talk, we want to share, we want to be able to grow together. And so if we're all there together, if we're all there for an event, whatever the event is, however we choose to share that event is what I think is so important and so powerful. And that's the greatest gift that Pastiscope has given me, and has given my class, and has given my friends, and has given people that I meet just randomly. I mean, like, I legit go up to people if I think that they have a story to tell, and I'm like, hey, you want to go live? And they're like, no. And I'm like, no, like really, that'd be great to share your story. And they're like, okay. So to have this Pastiscope community is just, we're just acknowledging what's important to each other, and we're sharing those stories. So that's my 2 cents.
And Margaret is infamous for, I don't think people can wiggle their way away from her when she's coming with that phone. I mean, it's just so sweet and loving. And I know deep down inside that person is probably going, oh my gosh, she's really about to make me do this. And so they have no choice. So Margaret is really good about just making it a comfortable space. And so when Brian asked, how does this help garner a sense of community or connecting as a community? It goes back to what we were talking about before. It's a place of vulnerability. We hear it in our community. Some people are like, I don't know if I'm yet comfortable being on screen. Some people have mentioned not knowing if, I like the way my voice sounds on camera, and being able to share our story. And so when we have this space and this community that can rally around you and say, hey, well, now Periscope has a feature where you don't even have to show your face. You can just simply use audio, encouraging you to tell your story, because your story is important. We all have different voices. I think, who was it last month went live, and I think their recording came out, was it Gabriel? His voice came out in a squirrely kind of voice. And he was like, you know what? Heck with it. I'm going on. I'm not restarting. It wasn't an opportunity where the community poked fun and laughed and ridiculed, but instead we focused on what was the message. That was insignificant to the power and the content that he was sharing. And so that sense of community, to know that it is okay. Things don't always go as perfect as you'd like. I'm in the car right now on my laptop using my mobile hotspot from my phone to be able to do this webinar, because guess what? Life is still happening. I wasn't going to miss this opportunity to connect with my friends, but I'm vulnerable right now because I'm like, Lord, please keep the connection stable. At least don't let it go out in the middle of the broadcast. And I know that Brian and Margaret have my back. They'll be able to pick up if it does happen, if I do get disconnected. And so that's what that is. It's to know that you have a place where people are going to have your back, regardless of the pitfalls and things that happen. And so I think for me, that is the biggest takeaway, to know that it'll be okay.
And to honor your humanity, Val, you're like, Cassie just said this, like, you are amazing. So thank you for your dedication. And Brian, thank you for your dedication. Like, this is just so exciting.
Like, Margaret is the most polite person on this planet.
I'm affirming us because that's what's important. It's so important.
That's your language.
I mean, it's important because I want you to know that I value you, and I want Val to know that I value her, and
And that's the beautiful part about it,
Don't make me cry.
I think it's too late. That acceptance of
vulnerable.
but as of our community, the acceptance of who everyone is for who they are goes without question for us.
That's right.
We value, not only do we value everyone's opinion when we come out, per topic per month, but the sense of who they are, we also so value that. And the cool thing is, you know, when and I'm not teasing Margaret, I'm just saying that she truly is. And when she affirms people, I may be having a bad day. And I'll throw out something, maybe a graphic that, you know, I just half-heartedly, you know, threw together. Um, but when you get that praise from Margaret, I mean, I tell you, I'm elevated, you know, 10 times. And it makes me want to, you know, all right, let me go take this back in. Let me try a little bit harder, you know, and put more of Brian into it, whatever the case may be. And we need that. We all have these different uh, uh, um, um, ways of looking at one another, these different personalities, and it is valued in this community. But when I look at live streaming, you know, in a whole, when I look at classrooms who are doing some live streaming in the classroom, when I see those kids sometimes, you know, just sharing who they are, like, you know, I give Dean, who's a member of this community, a shout out. You know, past 2 days, his kids were writing poems and raps and songs. They were singing songs, you know, based on some poetry. I didn't get the gist of the entire project, but they were going live, you know, with an authentic audience, and people were moved by, you know, one, their boldness, you know, and their vulnerability to get on camera to do the things that they're doing, but some of the messages that they had behind, you know, their work was powerful, and it was touching not only adults, it was touching other classrooms, and those kids felt a sense of community because they had this global reach all of a sudden that were backing them up, that were supporting what they were doing, even at their young age. So I think that's one of the powers of live streaming. You know, with that being said, uh, watching some of them, I didn't see them being nervous, but I did also realize that he didn't have everyone go in his classroom, because sometimes going on camera and going live can create a sense of anxiety. You know, so when you know someone has a story, a very powerful story that we realize needs to be shared, how do you help them? This is the next question. It's my segue. How do you help them deal with that fear or that anxiety regarding with connecting with other people and educators live?
And I'm sorry, Val, I don't want to jump in too much, but this idea, I mean, you mentioned, you gave a vignette or an anecdote about how one person's words can affect you, and I think that that's kind of how we all have to live. I affirm because I think it's important, because I want, people aren't going to know what I'm thinking, and you never know what your actions are going to do for somebody else. And so what Dean did, and this idea of being able to affirm these students, and your question about being live, how do you get over the fear? You get over the fear, you help other people get over the fear by being authentic and by acknowledging and by addressing everything that might be happening and saying, hey, it's okay. I think that you have a really powerful story to tell. Just tell it. If you can tell me the story right now face to face, then you can tell the story to this camera in front of you and people, and you never know those connections that will happen. So I think, again, it all kind of boils back down to, people are never going to know what you're thinking unless you say it. So just say it. I mean, of course, you know, the caveats of like, be kind and not rude and all of that. But, you know, if you have a way to build somebody up, don't hold it back. And so that's what I always tell people. If I can talk to you in person, then you can talk to this camera and you're great. That's what I do to get over. And I've found, again, people are really comfortable. I always offer to go on as well. Like I say, okay, I'll start off here and then I will jump to you and say, you and I can do it together. And then I'll back off and give you your space. And if you want, I can come back. And that seems to be like a really good bookend model as well. So, you know, I have a pretty good success rate because of the community, the Passoscope EDU community that's always so welcoming and warm and supportive. And just, you know, I have such good people in my life, like Val and Brian, who are just like, hey, we're here.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, in addressing the fear, we all have to learn to be patient with people. Just be patient, meet them where they are, offer that level of support. You know, when we think about students that are in our classrooms or were in our classrooms at the points where some of us may have been there, we can't just push kids and say, hey, do it. And this is the expectation and you need to do it. We understand that there's some layers to that. There's some modeling that needs to be done. But before you model, you must explicitly teach. And so I remember there was a point in time where new people were entering our community that we would say, hey, if you need a tutorial session, we can do a private scope. We can test it out with you. We can see if your camera view is clear, if the picture is grainy, if your audio is coming out clear. And that was offline. And so that way they felt like, oh my God, you aren't just going to throw me into live broadcast day where everything can go wrong. You know, Brian created these short kind of video screencasts where it kind of shows you what to do. How do you flip your camera around? We can't just assume that people know what to do. And so a lot of the fear comes in going into spaces that are unfamiliar, things that you don't know. That's really the fear. You're never afraid of doing something that you've mastered. You do that well. It's the things that's the unknown that makes people afraid. And so I think when we lead with our hearts and we know that that is a true concern for people and we're patient with them and we build in those supports, then we kind of help them get through that fear. And like Margaret said, holding their hand, doing it with them and saying, look, I'll do it. I'll do it first. I'll pass it to you. I'll do it with you. And that way they know that you aren't going to let them fail hard. There may be some failures. There's some things that happen. But you'll be there to cushion them. And so I think that's how we address that.
You know, there were so many nuggets in both of what both of you said. And I'm upset with myself that I didn't have a pen to write some of that down. But many people don't realize that I myself am an introvert.
I think maybe we all are.
I think so. And in the beginning, it was very difficult for me to go live. Also, because I have another flaw. Introvert is not a flaw, but I do have a flaw of perfectionist. So not only am I an introvert, I'm a perfectionist. So I had to make sure that everything was right, and I would have, you know, everything that I wanted to say, and I have it in the script. And this is before, you know, I had mobile teleprompters and all that kind of jazz. And I would forget what I had to say, and it forced me into being comfortable with who I am. And there was at one of at our Voice Academy, I was privileged to be a part of cohort 1. We had a guest speaker, and he made this outstanding and profound statement. And it may not sound profound to others, but it meant a whole lot to me. He says, if people don't like what you have to say or what they see, then that's their problem. You know, in the beginning, I took it as me. I was flawed, for what I was displaying or what I was saying. But if I was given a story and a message to go out there, it's my responsibility to go out and share that message. And if people don't receive it, that's not my problem. It is their problem. It's up to them to receive it. I have to be obedient and go ahead and give them the message. And that was one of the things that helped me get over my anxiety. Go ahead, Margaret.
And just as a other person, and Sarah, it's so good to see you as an other person. Brian, like that's exactly it. Like I would have never known. I don't know what's on your mind unless you say it. And so I would have never known this story, your beautiful story. Like I remember past scope, it was, I don't know if it was October last year, whatever, about like how you became a teacher. It's just like, oh my gosh, like all of these beautiful moments, I don't know unless you tell me. And so yes, share your story. We all have stories to share. And if I don't want to hear it, then cool, thank you for sharing, but I want to hear it. I mean, I want to hear it, but you know what I mean? Like if I don't want to hear it, cool beans, I'll see you later. You know? Yeah.
I mean, the seeds are going to fall on different types of soil, and it's really not up to us on how people receive it. Just give the message. Just give the message. Hey,
that's Sarah. A great point too, Brian, because at the end of the day, we can't please 100% of people. I'm married to a vocalist, and I know that there was a time he would beat himself up if someone was like, I don't know if I really like that song. he was passionate about the song. He's like, man, I don't know why they don't like the song. And I said, guess what? There is somebody that does. So someone will receive your message. It may not be 100% of the people, and that's okay. If you've reached one person, then you've done something. You've made some type of impact.
And then that's a great example, because yeah, y'all know I sing as well, and that used to be, oh my goodness, that used to scare me to death. They're not going to like it. And I used to write, but I got to the point where I let people stop me from doing what I was called to do, and it created a sense of regret at sometimes by not sharing it. But what I learned was regret is the only thing that doesn't give you an answer. Rejection gives you an answer.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Gives you an answer. No,
tweetable quote.
Answer. But regret doesn't. You're constantly asking what if, and you never get an answer. So just go ahead and share that. I know that was.
Oh.
That was a tweetable quote. We need to
Just
tweet that. Tweet that, Cassie. Tweet that.
Oh my God. And I think that that's like the perfect segue, if I may, to question 5. Is that okay? This idea that regret is the only thing that doesn't give an answer. So how can you model that same passion for students in the classroom? How can you model that you have to live yourself as a lighthouse with the beacon turned on, and you're just putting everything out there? How can you model that best for your kids?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Be transparent, for sure. I miss being with my students in the classroom. This year was a great year, but I really miss just having those conversations with my kids. But I do take an opportunity to kids that are coming into the discipline office and the attendance office to pour into them. And so I think a lot of times I share stories, with those students about, they'll ask me, because I'm in a diverse school, but I'm in a school where there aren't as many African American leaders or teachers in the building. Out of our admin team of 9, 2 of us are African American, both female, and across the entire building, there are 2 other African American males and 2 other African American females out of a staff of 150. Mm. So when students look and they see, and some of them were just coming to me in awe and amazement, as though I was and they would I just wanted to come and say hi. And I knew where that was coming from. They hadn't seen another or too many, and so they wanted to know my story. And I shared it with them. It wasn't easy getting here. There were rejections that were made. There were people that conspired against me even getting to where I was, but I had to function in my confidence. I had to function in my worth. I had to function in my value, and I couldn't let their view of me weigh me down. I had to keep moving. And so I think when you let kids know truly, life isn't going to be a crystal stair. Life isn't going to always be perfect. Life isn't going to always be beautiful. There are going to be obstacles that get in your way. Tell them those stories. But it's how you get through it that really determines the measure of your character. Then they begin to say, you know what? I know I'm going to get some body blows, but I can recover. And so then when you model that, I'm human just like you. I can relate. I've had those hard moments. I've come from a single family home. I've been raised by an immigrant mother. We didn't always have it all. My life isn't perfect. And I think when kids see that you're willing to be open with them and you're not, high and mighty and too bougie, I can speak their slang if I need to. I can rock with the best of them. But then they say, you know what? That's all right. And they come and they start sharing things sometimes a little bit too much than you want to know. I think that gives them that safe space to know, you know what? It's okay. I can be human. And I think it's just the best way to do it. Be transparent. Keep it all the way funky, like I tell the kids. Keep it 100.
I like that. I really do like that. You're right. That is the advice that you just gave is what I would always say first is tell your story, because your story will resonate with those students, because you are being transparent. You are showing your vulnerability. The other thing is Always provide an example of when you face your fear. There's these kids deal with a lot of stuff, that we're not necessarily connected with, but facing your fears helps them get over, their particular anxious moments as well. I had a point I was going to say, but I lost it when you said people funky. I lost it. It is. I guess it is about the fear. I love it when I see teachers jump in the middle of the room and start rapping in front of their kids. Though they don't have the skills, period. And I'm just going to be real and say that they get out and do it. And those kids will sit there and laugh and cry and crack up. But then the next thing you notice, they start dancing, they get up, and they start doing it themselves. Facing that particular challenge, that particular fear is inspirational to a lot of our kids. And I think that's one of the things that we can do to help continue to model our passion for our students.
That's it. I mean, that was so authenticity, transparency, dialogue, and then taking on challenges, especially challenges that maybe mirror what they're going through as well. So if I'm expecting them to compete, I better be competing in some way, shape, or form. If I'm expecting them to be vulnerable, then I better make sure that I am vulnerable with them as well. So I think that's exactly what I think needs to happen. How might we model? We model by being ourselves. How might we model? We model by being honest, which then leads me to, and again, if I may be so bold for time and everything, to the next question, which is what we all were just talking about was engagement, right? Like how do you engage the other human, talking about modeling for students in the classroom. So then the next question is, how are we going to engage during a live stream, specifically Passiscope EDU, non-specifically just live streaming in general? How do we engage both during and after? Like, how do we see the other human?
I think for us as a community, it's us being able to have our back panel on Voxer, where we can just pop in and just hear each other's voice throughout the week, check in with each other. Brian and Wiley and Dan, and these guys are really good about just giving us new features or finding new platforms. Sarah jumps in and she tells us things that she may have tried when we're trying to figure out how to cross platforms. So I think just having that back panel space allows us to go deeper and build our relationship. That's where we can just pop in and say, hey, hope everybody has a great Monday. We retweet throughout the week, and sometimes it's not even necessarily related to Passiscope EDU per se, but it may be something that's going on. Like, Claudio does the things with Adobe Spark and Flipgrid, and, Sarah is doing her EduMatch and EduMatch publishing. So we're not just connecting in this space, in this community. We use the back panel, but we're also supporting other endeavors that each other are, a part of. And even if that's just a simple retweet, to amplify, because remember, that is the basis of our community, is to amplify those great things that are going on and that we're doing with students, it's happening in our districts and happening in our building.
Yeah, I agree. And that's actually a great question, Margaret, because you see many live stream platforms now trying to build in ways for you to interact with your audience and engage with them during a broadcast. The most horrific type of live stream is when the person who's actually streaming doesn't acknowledge the people that are watching. And some of the tips that we've given in the past is, as you see people coming into your broadcast, acknowledge them. Say, hey, I see a lot of people saying, hey, shout out where you're from. So, give a sense of connection of, how this fits globally. But as they make comments in your live stream, acknowledge those comments, answer those particular questions. And you see these platforms building that in. Facebook has that piece where you can actually have those questions being asked during a live broadcast. Periscope is built into where you can actually bring in the audio of someone to interact with during your particular broadcast. we ourselves, because we pass the scope on to the other person, we are interacting not only with the people who we're engaged with at the moment, but we're engaging with the person that either preceded us or that's coming afterwards. So those are some of the ways that we do it. I began on my personal broadcast, giving my audience an opportunity to ask questions and then vote on those questions that are being asked during the particular broadcast, so I can actually bring a sense of them inside of what I'm actually speaking about. And as that continues to grow, I can see that as being a powerful piece, not only in building the audience, but making the audience feel like family, that they're not only just listening to me espouse about, my ideas about a certain topic, or listening to the guests that I'm interviewing, tell about their expertise and skills, but they feel that they are also a part of the conversation. And I think that is critical.
Okay, I know that we're running low on time, but the sense of them, Cassie, you can tweet that. I mean, that I think that speaks the whole point of like affirmation. You want to have a sense of them, and you want that humanity. Brian, Val, oh my gosh. Okay. Absolutely. I know we got to move on, but oh my gosh. Ah!
That's okay. So popping in here with us is the Sarah Thomas. And so Sarah's going to be segueing into this, and Sarah, if you will just introduce yourself to everyone, and then I know that you've got two burning questions that you want to be able to continue this conversation with. So we'll hop it over to you if you're ready. If not, we can segue a little bit more and just give you a little bit more time if you need to.
Oh, hey, everybody. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so glad to be here, and my apologies for the delay. So, yeah, super excited. And I love the previous question about the interacting. I remember what we used to do. I used to tap like really fast on the screen and call it Tap Game Strong. But definitely what y'all are saying, supporting one another, interacting, that is just so important. So absolutely. And I love the fact that we are a community of content creators, and that we have so much that we are willing to share with one another. I feel like that's, as a profession, exactly where we need to go. Oh, and you asked me to introduce myself, which I have not done. So hello, I'm Sarah, and I am a regional tech coordinator, as well as I've been a classroom educator for 10 years, and I'm going into year 4 of my job. So that's 14, almost 15 total. And I'm also the founder of EduMatch. So hello, and very.
Muted yourself, Sarah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was done.
That's Sarah. So, Sarah, I know that you had a question, and we kind of talked a little bit about this. I think Margaret and Brian both mentioned it, talking about being an introvert. And so live streaming almost seems to be something that goes against the grain of what an introvert might want to do. So I believe, or one of the questions that you brought up so powerfully was, how might connecting play a role with introvert?
Right. Yep. So yeah, so I'm sorry, I didn't know I was supposed to ask it, but yeah, so the reason I'm asking this question is because deep down inside, and I am an introvert. It's not even that deep. It's like right below the surface. But sometimes in this world, a friend of mine says that a lot of introverts, as they're not in the majority, play the role of extrovert very effectively. So it's kind of like a mask, right? But as so many educators truly are introverts, without that mask on. So how might we help them take steps to be able to share through live streaming, I guess, is the context for my question. So I'm gonna pass it over to you all, have you all answer, and then I'll jump back in.
Okay, 2 seconds, and then just the idea of like being an introvert, so when you have the pass the scope, the idea is like, it's all out there. And so it's kind of like you're able to build a Rolodex, and when you're ready to engage, and when you're ready to put yourself out there, it's like, okay, here I am, which is why, again, I love Passoscope EDU and these communities, because I know it's there when I'm ready. So for me, it's like building a Rolodex.
She's definitely conscious of the time. And, you know, as an introvert, you know, I've noticed that what I do is I hold a lot in. You know, I observe, I gather, and I hold a lot in that actually needs, it's actually sometimes it's unhealthy, and I need to be able to get it out. So this live streaming gives me that opportunity to get that out, those ideas, those sense of frustrations, those needs to be the need to be by myself. Sometimes I need to get that idea actually out there, and it's actually allows me to breathe. You know, believe it or not, it allows me to breathe. I may play the role. It's because I'm passionate about the stuff I'm speaking about. But if I continue to hold it in, I become frustrated, and my tolerance level decreases. And this gives me an opportunity to get it out, to breathe, be me, regardless of who's listening or not. And the cool thing is, with what we do at Periscope, Sarah has mastered this. You can go live without even showing yourself, just audio. You know, still get that message apart. And I think that helps us as introverts to be able to have that particular option as well.
Right. And I can't speak on being an introvert because I'm not. I am an extrovert. I am social. I am active. But there are times where, you know, for the most part, though, I'm not having to be center stage, because I am a person that believes in inclusivity. And so I like to make sure that everyone has an equal chance to share. So although I'm out there and I'm social, I don't need to be on stage. I don't need to be center stage, but I do want all of us to play together on the stage, so to speak. So.
All right. Love it. Love it. I love all of your answers. So true. I'm like saying yes in the background. So my quick answer would be that I want to, I just wanted to say that, like, incrementally, I believe that people, you know, kind of piggybacking off of what Margaret was saying, people, giving people that space to share when they want. Like, I love the fact that Passoscope EDU is, you know, an opt-in type group, you know, where people, when they're ready, you know, they interact and engage in the ways where they're ready. They might comment on someone else's, they might lurk for a while, but then when they're ready, they can sign up for their month and, you know, do their scope, and they'll have this community cheering them on in the background. So I love it, love it, love it, love it. So definitely, you know, taking those incremental steps. So that kind of segues into the next question, because, you know, we have this community where we are constantly connecting. So what would you all say are the biggest benefits to connecting?
Go ahead, Margaret. I see it.
Well, I don't want to take up too much time. It gives me hope for my future and for the collective future. I mean, that's ultimately what it is. It's ultimately about, I hate to go back to it, I'm a broken record, but it's about humanity, and it's this hope for the future. And it's hearing and being able to say, oh my gosh, Val, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that you were an extrovert, not an introvert. So excuse me for saying that. But thank you for being the extroverted self so you can help organize everything. You know, just this hope. Like, I love humans. As much of an introvert as I am, I love humans, and I love being able to push together. So that's the benefit. It gives us hope.
Yeah, Valerie is definitely
perspective.
our woo.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
No, I was gonna say Valerie is definitely our woo in this community. Woo personality is how my wife is. We're like oil and water, but when we go out in public, she's all over the place. She's connecting with people, doing this and that. I'm just like, okay. But I think the biggest benefit for me is having a soft landing when I fall. The community allows for me to do. And then not only that, you know, providing that soft landing, having all of those arms to pull me back up, to lift me. This community does that, and so many other communities that I'm in. When I take the opportunities to just jump out there, that's what happens. I know that I could, you know, crowd surf, you know, with my community, that they're going to catch me and they're going to carry me to the destination there where I need to be. And I love that about Passoscope EDU.
And the benefits of being connected is just being able to hear and see the world through different people's perspectives. You know, I creative piece where every month we come up with the hashtag, and it's not 15, 20, or 30 people all repeating the same thing, but it's really everyone putting their own spin on it. That's a true benefit. Another benefit I would say is it reinvigorates the passion for learning. You know, not being connected a few years ago, it was getting to a crash and burn spot. It was almost like, oh my gosh, because then there were people that in your immediate building, you wanted some more, you needed an extra step, and everyone was kind of stagnant. They were comfortable where they were, or it was a negative Nancy, and you just definitely could not get what you needed out of that. So being connected has just refreshed and reinvigorated my passion for learning and seeing things in a different way. And this tribe, amongst many other PLNs, Twitter and other Voxer groups and spaces, have definitely done that. So with that being said, I think we are moving into our last and final two questions. All right, so here we go. Does the idea of branding belong in the connected educator space? Why or why not? Should we be branding in this space? Go for it.
I guess I would say that it's inevitable. It's inevitable because in my mind, and I oh my gosh, this has been a topic I've always wrestled with, but in my mind, then just that question has been bouncing around, and I think it's inevitable because branding to me is pretty much the same as your reputation. I know that some people kind of do, I think it's a two-way street because you need to share as well as listen. So I feel that both sides are important, sharing and listening. And the sharing might be equated more in people's minds with the branding, but I think sharing and listening, and they go hand in hand.
Brian, Margaret, what are your thoughts?
Exactly that. I mean, I think that we are who we are, and we are our best selves when we are able to say this is who we are, and we're protecting it and we're projecting it. So I think that I like that word, it's inevitable, but I am my best advocate. So yes, I think branding is important. Very much so.
I definitely agree with that. It is who you are. So
That's right. Whether you want to or not, you are branding. You are putting a message out there, and that is communicating some message. So we thank you guys so much. I'm going to pass this over to, I believe, Cassie, who's going to come in and wrap us up. This has been a phenomenal hour. Margaret, Brian, Sarah, thank you guys so much for doing that, joining us this morning and giving up an hour. I know that the Connected Education Appreciation Day space is a great place to connect as well. So Cassie, I'm turning it over to you.
All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. This was an incredible conversation, and I was just like doing this the whole time. So I'm hoping that I got all of your thoughts. And as I mentioned in the chat there between you guys, you were giving me chills the whole time. Like, Margaret's tearing up, I'm tearing up, just like, whoa, it's only 10 a.m. for me right now, and all of these emotions have already happened. But this was absolutely incredible, and I just want to thank all of you for joining in and, you know, just sharing a little bit more about Past the Scope and the idea of being connected, which is so important. Obviously, it's so important to you guys, and you know, it's very near and dear to my heart as well, as that's how I've met all of you amazing people. So thank you so much again. And I just wanted to share my screen here for just a second and do a little promo for our next event, which is going to be happening next month. So if you go to our website, ceduad.com, you can also find it on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. So we're, you know, on all of the social media sites. But if you scroll down to upcoming events, this is the one we just did today with the amazing Valerie and Brian and Sarah and Margaret. And then the next one is next month with Desiree Alexander, and she will be talking about, ironically, branding yourself. So she will be joining us same time next month on the 18th. So if you guys are interested in joining that, then you would just click there to find out more and get your link and all of that. So, but yeah, with that, like I said, I just wanted to thank you guys so much for joining us and for taking some time out to share your story this morning. And I'm gonna wrap it up so that we can all go and have an awesome weekend.
Thank you so much for this space.
Yeah, thank you so much.